All right. LinkedIn Live, Laurie.
Yes, excited.
Yeah,
We're
happy.
back.
Yeah, excited to be doing another. We took a little bit of a hiatus there because, in a positive note, things were busy for the both of us. And granted, I was a little bit sad because I've come so used to doing these and enjoy them, and we've gotten some great feedback. So might as well keep doing them. So I'm glad we're back at it. But let's jump into introductions. My name is Jared Heckberg. I'm Director of Sales and Marketing here at Brilliance. I've been at Brilliance for 5 years, and every year gets better. I especially look fondly upon this last year because we've done fun things like LinkedIn Live and created a lot of really cool content and interacted with a bunch of people that we weren't interacting with before. So excited to be talking about self-service via B2B commerce clouds. But before we jump into that, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hello. I'm Laurie Mcdonald. I started Brilliance Business Solutions a little more than 20 years ago. My background's in computer electrical engineering. I went to school at Purdue, ended up through an internship at NASA Johnson Space Center where I had the opportunity to work as a flight controller for the space shuttle program, which was an amazing experience. I ended up meeting my husband there. He also was an engineering at Purdue, and he also was a flight controller at NASA. And he eventually went to work for Rockwell Automation when we graduated from college, while I was at NASA at Johnson Space Center. And after a few years in Houston, he had a job promotion to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to Rockwell's headquarters. And so we ended up here in Milwaukee, and I was trying to figure out what could be his coolest space. That was in 1998, and I decided it sounded like fun to start a web development company. And so that's how Brilliance got started. And 10 years ago, my husband left his job at Rockwell, where he managed their largest data warehouse, and now he manages our development team. So over the years, we found that we were uniquely equipped to work in the B2B space with manufacturers and distributors, helping them to implement digital commerce solutions, and which leads to a really fun conversation that we're having here today about B2B commerce and self-service. Excited about this.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, a couple housekeeping items. If you are with us live and you don't mind, share where you're coming from and who you are. We'd be happy to interact with you, as well as if you get a minute, do us a favor and give Brilliance a follow on LinkedIn. We're producing as much content as we can that our team can keep up with. It's fairly regular. It's good. Would love to continue to share that with all of you. All right, so self-service via B2B commerce clouds. I'm excited about this because it's a topic that obviously we're having frequently with prospects and clients. And I kind of want to take a step back and talk about the importance of self-service before we jump into the B2B commerce clouds aspect. And so, as we look at e-commerce leaders, over the last 20 years, the Amazons, Walmarts, Alibaba, they've really shaped the buying behavior and expectations that consumers have when it comes to what to expect when leveraging digital commerce channels. And, the success of these organizations, you can really credit a vast amount of that to the idea of self-service, the convenience that comes from that experience. And so, with that being simply put, without diving further into that, making that experience for the user positive and memorable, and that answer being largely tied to self-service has really drawn us to, we're at a crossroads of now B2B is trying to play catch up, I guess, is where we're going with this. And now it's B2B's turn to start delivering on these same level of self-service.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
Yes, definitely. It's an opportunity for B2B. And, when we think about self-service, like when we think about in our personal lives, the reasons that we value Amazon and other sites like it that really allow us to place an order and get something quickly and be able to view our order history and get details about things we've ordered in the past and look up information when we're trying to pull together information for receipts or other things we might need. It can be really convenient to have ways to look up information and find that yourself without having to pick up the phone and call someone. And, I think what's so interesting to me about B2B, having been in this space for such a a long time is that in general, in that space, companies kind of perceive, and it's true, like the business is more complex. There's a lot more to it that doesn't lend itself necessarily as easily as it does for the consumer space to self-service. And yet that's what I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to have today, is that the exciting thing is that both because a lot of companies have seen the potential that exists here for them to really grow their business through helping customers to get the answers they need themselves. And also, reducing their internal cost to serve customers through supporting them with self-service tools. But also, there's so much growth that's happened from a technology standpoint to make it easier for B2B companies to offer these kinds of tools. So I think in many cases, companies don't even know all of the options that exist out there to help them do that. So that's what makes this fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, you kind of segued perfectly into where I was hoping we'd take this conversation next. We all have our favorite features now on the Amazons, the Walmarts, the Home Depots, when it comes to the cool features that they're delivering to consumers. But there's a big difference in what we're looking for as consumers and what B2B users are looking for. So
Yeah.
can you share some examples of self-service features that you look highly upon when it comes to the B2B digital commerce?
From a B2B perspective, yeah, definitely. I think when we think about B2B users, like one of the fundamental differences that is true for a business user versus a personal user is that we're really talking about an organization versus a single person. And so within an organization, you have multiple people that could be buying from within your organization on your behalf. And we've got this article that I wrote recently that talks about some of these features in it. And one of the features it talks about in there, Jared, is user administration. It's a little bit down the page. And so to me, like thinking about, you have multiple users within a company that may be placing an order, how you're going to make it easy for you for your team to enable different people within your company to have access to that information, to see what orders other people on the team are placing. Maybe there are limits on what you want certain people on your team to do. So some people can, add items to their cart, but aren't able to finalize an order. Some people can get an order ready, but it needs to go through an approval step before it's actually placed. Or maybe you have other people who, can place that order without any additional approval. Thinking through how you're going to have a team set up and enable them to function effectively together is one of the real differences that exists in the B2B space. And in a really nice way, that once this is set up, the company is going to want to continue to use you as the place they're ordering from, because they've gone, they put in the work to get this set up the way they need it, and you're going to make it easier for them to place orders in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, in that same regard, when it comes to self-service for users, that user could also be a salesperson within their organization when it comes
Yes.
to digital commerce. Can you share, I don't know, some maybe not examples, but the power of from your perspective, how that can affect a sales team?
Well, yeah, I mean, so like one of the great things that can happen as well in terms of self-service is that salespeople can be involved in that process as well. So like you might have a salesperson who is able to impersonate a user, so they can, so if a user is having trouble, is going through the self-service process themselves, but needs some support, a salesperson can help them with that, can log in as the person and help them. In addition, you can have the ability to set up lists where you might have a shopping list that maybe even a salesperson, so a list of products that you purchase frequently, and a salesperson could even put items on that list for you in advance to make that easier for you. So really thinking about how this can be a tool, and that kind of also goes when you talk about lists, people might also be thinking about things like quotes, having quotes set up on your behalf so that you can be ordering with some special pricing that a salesperson has put there for you. Those are all different ways that these self-service tools can be things that actually aren't purely self-service. They can be ways for salespeople to support customers but really giving customers the tools to be able to do some of the work on their own and then be assisted by that salesperson.
Absolutely. I feel like that is a conversation that we're having frequently. So much so that we're working on a resource to be coming out soon here, hopefully, fingers crossed, around not only compensation for sales teams and how you should structure that for the use of your digital commerce channel, but also just overall the idea of getting that buy-in from a sales team and the power that can provide to your e-commerce channel as you're trying to grow that revenue stream.
Yeah.
Is there any other features listed on the article that you wanted to touch?
Yeah.
We'll also share this out there for those who are interested. You can find it in a variety of places, but I'll make sure to get it into the chat as well if you're looking to see it quickly. But
Definitely.
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you scroll, we go into budget management here. And so this is a really interesting one. So budget management, like this is a feature that some of the big B2B e-commerce players offer. Like you can get this in the Amazon business. You can, Grainger offers this and some others, large B2B e-commerce players offer this. But this is where you provide the ability for an organization to set up a budget that they can even have different categories potentially or different users that are assigned a certain budget limit, so that they know that orders that are placed with you are going to stay within the budget that they have. And again, this is an area where once someone's taken the time to go through the work of setting up a budget, if they know that you're going to help them to manage to their budget and keep things within their budget, they're more likely just to direct everyone on their team to place orders for that item through you, so that they know that that's taken care of, and really a way that you can provide customers an additional level, like a value add in terms of their service. So and then a little bit further down the page on this article, we're talking about invoice history. And this is interesting because many times in e-commerce, we naturally think about order history. Thinking about looking at the history of the orders that have been placed. Oftentimes, in the retail world, in the B2C world, we're thinking about online orders because that's naturally what happens in typically if you're placing an order on Amazon as an individual, you're thinking about the order that you placed. But in the B2B setting, it could be an order that was placed offline or online. And as important as looking at the orders that were placed is understanding the invoice that was sent. Those invoices in some instances can include additional charges that, like, there might be freight charges that weren't known at the time of the order, or an order sometimes might get changed after it's placed for a variety of reasons. Maybe a customer calls in and asks for some changes to be made. Maybe their sales team looks over the order that was placed and realizes that they were going to order something that might not be the right fit for them and calls them up afterwards and makes some changes. And so an invoice is really the record of that true invoice that's going to need to be paid. It's something that the customer is going to need to give to their AP team. And so having a way for them to easily look up the invoices, granted, you may be mailing them or emailing them out to people. I don't know if any of you are like me, but I tend to, it's possible we have other people on my team that are in charge of processing invoices because I tend to have too many pieces of paper and can lose things. So sometimes it's good to have a place where someone can go look up the information, and for you, the convenience to you here is if it's easier for a customer to look up their invoice and figure out what they owe you, that makes it that much more likely you're going to get paid on time because a customer can get an accurate information on what's owed and when. And also just coming back to the idea that you're providing them a value add. You're positioning yourself as someone that's going to be easy to do business with because they're going to be able to get all the information they need as a part of working with you.
Absolutely. I think also adding into that the idea of operational efficiency, right? Like for your organization, knowing that someone doesn't have to sit on a phone for 20, 30 minutes explaining someone how to find an invoice or helping them find it and understand all that information, allows that person to stay focused on whatever else they're working on.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about your customer service teams. Do you want them fielding calls because a customer can't find an invoice and they're having to go look it up? Or do you want them, focused on other value add activities? And so the more kinds of support that you can provide your customers, that you can make it easier for them to do themselves, the less time your team has to spend on those types of actions, and the more time they can spend on doing things that are really generating customers that love you.
Mm-hmm.
Some other things that we talk about in this article. So one of the things we mentioned is the idea of restriction groups, and this is really interesting in the B2B space. Many times I can think of clients that we've had who, they have a product that is like a chemical that can't be shipped into California, as an example, or there may be restrictions of certain places a product can't be shipped to because of either rules that exist in that state, or it may have to do with territories that the organization has set up in some way. But so you may have restrictions on where certain products can be sold, or in terms of what customers certain products can be sold to. Maybe certain products are only for certain customers. And so those types of restrictions are things that you want the capability to be able to set up within your e-commerce software as well. Another thing we've got on this list is like mobile apps. A lot of, certainly every website now that we develop, and in general, hopefully, that if you're working with another vendor is developing, is mobile responsive. But in some instances, it can be helpful to have a mobile app where someone can, pull up that app and place an order from the app itself. So, so many things really to think about. And at the end of the day, it's really all about how can you make it easy for customers and save them time.
Absolutely. Yeah, I one of my favorite examples, and this was in a previous lifetime. I wish, hopefully one day I'll be a Brilliance client, but they were an organization who did a lot of work underground in mines. And the problem they kept running into is when they were working on the equipment underground in these mines, they would find themselves needing to, make a note that they have a part they had to replace in that piece of equipment. And obviously you don't have access to a desktop, you had access to a mobile device, and they could go ahead and quickly pull up their mobile app, place the order for whatever part they needed, and know that's taken care of, versus jotting down a note in their previous process that, I need to replace this part, trying to shove that dirty piece of paper into their pocket, remembering them once they get back above ground that they got to go to their desktop and sit down and place that order. It's incredible the power of a mobile app can bring in the right setting.
Yeah, definitely. And just coming back to that idea, to your point, Jared, like that's all about convenience. I mean, what you're talking about there is just making it easier for that person. And when we think about Amazon, the reason that so many of us are quick to go and place an order on Amazon, it's because it's so easy, because we get it so quickly, because we know we can count on it. Like Amazon has trained us on all of those things, that all of those things are true. And, if we can be someone, if we can create sites where customers feel the same way about us, one of the things that does is it makes customers less price sensitive. Because, I can say for me, even though I do, certainly there are times when I will price shop, but also there are times when I just know if I go and order it, on Amazon, that I'll get it really quickly. And like, that's enough sometimes. So yeah.
It's so true. I think many of us use that exact same mindset when it comes to leveraging Amazon. All right. So now that we've kind of touched on a handful of features that relate to the B2B side and the self-service realm, a topic that we dove a little bit further into in an exploration tech session, and something again that we have frequent conversations around, is the idea of prioritization. And if you are someone who's already has an e-commerce solution stood up, and now you're looking to innovate and continue to improve, how do you prioritize features, and what recommendations would you have for someone around prioritization?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think a lot of times people don't think about priorities. They think about, I have all these requirements. And, many times it's kind of just like, we have to have all these things. And I think that really reflecting on priorities is a great way to approach any digital project. Um, when we work with customers, we really try and encourage them to look at like how small they can keep their initial project in order to get it up and running, and then build on it over time. And so really when we're talking about that, really that's a conversation around priorities. It's like, what are the must-haves? What are the things you absolutely have to have at day one? And then after that, what are the other things that you're going to want to do first after you get your site live? And usually when you start to have conversations about priority, those can be really difficult conversations for customers when they don't understand all of the implications around their choices. And so, just to make that maybe a little bit more clearer, if customers don't understand how much it's going to cost to implement a given feature, it's going to be hard for them to tell you how important that is to them. And so really, understanding priority is tied to many things. It's tied to how important is that feature going to be to your customers? Like, how much value does that represent to your customer? How likely is that feature to bring you more revenue or more customer loyalty or customer satisfaction? It's tied to how much will that feature help your team? Like, how much may that offload or some people that are really busy on your team, or make your team's life easier? And then it's also tied to what it costs, right? So, you may have things that you really, thought were a really high priority, but then when you look at the price tag associated with it, you're like, oh, well, maybe we could wait a little longer on that one. So when we think about priorities, I think it's really hard to have that conversation until you're able to have conversations with people around what things cost. And, so one of the reasons that I like to the article that we were just bringing up here is actually from Optimizely's B2B Commerce Cloud, like the software from Optimizely that's called B2B Commerce Cloud, and they have a lot of these features that there's articles actually about features that they have pre-built in their software. Certainly, there's still labor involved in the setup of the site, but a lot of it's much more efficient to implement these features than it would be if you were building it on other platforms. And so when we talk about prioritizing features, I think the best way to approach that is to do it by looking at the costs involved in setting up whatever those features are, and then weighing that against the benefits involved, and also kind of taking a longer term view. So you can look at kind of rolling features out over time, getting feedback from customers, and that just helps you to improve the presence overall. I see we have a question. I don't know, or maybe it's just a comment.
Yeah, it's a great comment if you want to reference it, Laurie.
Yeah.
From a BDR from Optimizely named Jack Coops. I don't know if you want to touch on it, but it's a very interesting point.
Yeah, let me see. So, so talking about when speaking to people over in the UK, they don't understand the benefits that are available from a B2B commerce platform, and they're not aware that these products are available. I think that's so true. A lot of people don't know these products. And so when you manage to earn a half an hour to explain the functionality benefits, it blows their mind. Yeah. And a self-service portal to reduce the number of touch points needed to make a sale is a much better way of describing the platform than a conventional e-commerce platform. People that haven't used B2B platforms before and haven't been educated what they're capable of do not understand the amount of time a B2B commerce platform can save their teams internally, as well as increasing customer retention. It takes a lot of education for someone to fully understand the benefits to their business. Yeah, I think that's so true. And, the reality is that when Jared, how many times have you and I been on a call with someone who's like, I'm not asking for something really hard. I just want what Amazon has. Just do that, and which is just so hilarious because I know they mean it well. Like they're usually not joking, unfortunately, but Amazon and Grainger and the companies that we admire, they have huge teams that have spent a lot of time building those web presences. And so when we talk to companies who are looking to create that kind of an experience for their customers, it can be a lot of work to create it. And so doing some research about the platforms that already exist that have some of these features built for you, and at least educating yourself in that process can be really useful.
Absolutely. And it's not just UK. I love the example. I love the shout out from across the pond there.
Yes, yes.
We meet with organizations frequently here in North America who it blows my mind every time we have the opportunity to sit down with someone and they're explaining this very cumbersome manual process that they're leveraging internally still. And it comes back to these ideals of, people and wanting this human interaction, I guess, which is great, but you can still achieve that level of touch, that level of personal touch, while still combining that with a digital presence, especially through these B2B commerce tools. And I know you referenced, Optimizely is a great of someone who's, and the article that you referenced obviously is something that you wrote specifically for them, but there are other platforms out there too that are doing a really great job of B2B commerce as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that really at the end of the day, it's really about taking some time to educate yourself and learn what's out there. And going back to what we were talking about, prioritizing. Ideally, you can have conversations. One of the things that we try and do in our sales process is be as transparent as we can about what costs exist, where they're coming from, so that you can make educated choices about like how you want to prioritize, what's most important to you, really with a very clear understanding.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to hit on in regards to this topic before we close it out for our Friday?
Yeah, I don't know. This has been fun. I just think I think at a high level, it's this. I think it's, kind of going back to what Jack was saying. It's not, when we talk about B2B e-commerce, like e-commerce isn't necessary. Sometimes we have a picture that e-commerce means adding a product to your cart and checking out. And really what we're talking about is creating value for a customer, leveraging digital, improving their experience with our company, leveraging digital. And there are many ways you can do that via digital that aren't necessarily them placing the order. It could be them placing the order, but it could be helping them to find information easier, do their job easier in a number of ways. And so there's just many possibilities out there. And if you're intrigued by the idea and want to learn more, we'd love to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll close it out with, we have some, we've been, everyone's been busy. So our exploration text sessions have been delayed a little bit, but we have some really exciting guests coming up in the near future.
Yeah.
That we'll be announcing very shortly here. We're working through some of the final details, but we have 3 or 4 lined up for the next few months here that I'm really excited about joining and asking them a whole bunch of questions. So keep your eyes peeled for that information as it comes out. Otherwise, as always, if you have questions, if you're interested in a conversation, or you just want to talk B2B commerce, period, you can find Laurie and I both here on LinkedIn. Thank you, everyone, for your time, and have a wonderful weekend.
Thanks.